at exactly 5 minutes past the top of the hour. Thank you so much for being with us from the hour of 6:30 till now. Welcome to Good Morning Uganda Extra, an extension of Good Morning Uganda. Now we know that the world day by day is moving into electronic, and of course that calls for digitalization. And Uganda government is also moving in the same direction. Today we are going to be looking at building an inclusive digital economy. And when we talk about Uganda government, that takes us to NITA Uganda. I'm honored this morning to have the director of e-service or e-government service, that is at NITA Uganda, and that is Collins Mugasha Biri. Let me just Collins Mugasha. Well, since I have him, we'll be able to mention the other name. But I'm very excited having a young man with whom we are going to be discussing issues of e-governance or e-government. Good morning.
Good morning, Robert, and good morning, our viewers. My name is Colin Mugasha Babirukamo. So it's a long name from Chigezi, but after a while, you get used to it.
Usually, such names have meaning, or
yes, they do. Every name in our corner of the country does have a meaning. Yeah.
I won't dare pronouncing it again because
Mugasha
I know
will do.
Mugasha will do me good,
you.
and of course Collins. But to begin with, just to throw more light to our viewer who is watching us, when we talk about that is digital economy or e-governance or e-government, what are we referring to here?
So thank you, Robert, and good morning, our viewers once again. So an inclusive digital economy, and let me start with the words a digital economy. So obviously the word digital comes from the word digits, and so people use the word digital for now for innovations, computers, internet. All that is the digital economy. It's basically a movement away from traditional economy where there were physical shops, a physical economy, physical cash, into a digital economy, an economy that's actually driven by digital technologies and or ICT as we basically say. And you will basically see that now the world is now shifting to the internet. People are leaving their shops that they used to have previously in physical corners into an e-shop. People are now using mobile money and digital finance. So an economy that's driven by digital technologies is what we're calling a digital economy. And that's where the world is going. I think you've seen things like eBay, you've seen Netflix now, big studios that have no physical studios. That is all part of this digital economy. But most importantly, today we're talking about an inclusive digital economy. And an inclusive digital economy means no one is left behind in this move to digitization or digitalization.
I love the word you've used. No one is left behind. Now, when you talk about digital, by position first that we are third world country, you know the challenges that are already there. So when you say all inclusive, Collins, which target groups are you referring to? How inclusive can digital be?
And I think that's the core of it right now. It is true that we have not achieved an all-inclusive digital economy yet, but that's what we're now striving and working towards as government. And I'll be sharing a few of the things that we're doing right now. But basically, we're talking about the last mile person, the person in Kabong, the person in Kisoro, in Chihihi, the person in Arua, women and youth who are usually marginalized, people with disabilities, refugees and host communities. How are we ensuring that as there's an internet or digital revolution, they are also taking part in this revolution? It is true, for instance, in the lockdown, you saw that children in the urban areas continued in school because they had online school. That's part of the whole digital drive. School could continue without physical classrooms. But someone in the village could not have the same privilege. So they are not yet included in this economy yet. And our job today is to share a bit more, but also see how to include all our people, the whole population, the last mile into this digital economy.
Very interesting.
So it is still being aspired to. It's not there. We're not there yet.
Okay. Otherwise, that really answers my question, the question of many. But now also, let's look at the relevancy of this. We know we want to, our government, like you've said, wants to get to that least prioritized person.
Yes.
But then, what is the relevance of this economy?
Okay.
Because we know that maybe someone has been doing business very freely. I want to give an example of the IFLI system by URA. Remember how previously any Chikubo guy, anybody would do business very easy. Now, IFLI comes in and you find people everywhere say, ha, there is this system, there is this system.
Yeah.
So, what is then the relevance of this system?
Okay, so those are just small bits of actually the digital economy in terms of the government systems that are trying to become more efficient. For a government to function well, we must obviously collect taxes, we must be more efficient in terms of our collections. But we need more efficient systems and services. And oftentimes when you introduce new, especially digital services, people take a while, citizens take a while to actually catch on them. But there are very many benefits like efficiency, you know, a lower cost of doing business for the government, but also the convenience of a citizen in your home. Can you imagine sitting in your home? Let me give you an example, Robert. In Estonia, where we are aspiring to go for a digital economy, Estonia is a small country in Europe. There are only two things that require you to leave your house to receive public services. And that is only if you're having a divorce or you're having a mortgage. But everything else is basically done in the comfort of your home. And this really changes the convenience, the cost effectiveness. It changes the whole customer feel of being a citizen. And just on the comfort of your mobile phone, you're able to access government public services. So a digital economy is something we need to embrace. We are obviously behind as Uganda and as Africa, but Europe, the USA, and most developed countries have already taken off in that direction. Every public service now can be accessed online rather than lining up. So Robert, I'm sure you'll be happier to use an online service than lining up for hours at KCCA or URA to receive a service. So that's the relevance. It brings convenience to citizens.
Well, this brings me to then what is government's role in building this digital economy, because I would feel, yes, Robert, I could, but in one way or the other, apart from having the knowledge on how to run this, sometimes there's gadgets, sometimes there's connection, all that. So where is government's role?
No, thank you very much. I could answer that maybe by describing the four building blocks of an inclusive digital economy. Basically, the first one is basically infrastructure. Or let me talk about policy and regulation. For you to have a digital economy that's run web-based, that is also run on the internet for convenience of citizens, you really need to have infrastructure for that country. And that's one of the building blocks that you can have for any inclusive digital economy. The government of Uganda, through NITA Uganda, in the last few years that we've been operating, has built about 4,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable around the country. We are only just nearing about 60 districts that have been wired or connected. But again, there's still a lot to reach because we have more than 140 or so districts. So we are only just approaching even the 50% mark. There's a lot of work to be done. Even when we reach the districts, we are yet to actually reach the last mile, the last health center, the last school, but there's some work being done. So the government is laying infrastructure for that purpose through NITA Uganda. And this will also bring the cost of internet down, because that has also been a big challenge. How do you ensure no one is left behind if the cost of internet is still exclusive and taking away some people? Some people can't access or afford. So in this regard, the more we push fiber optic cable around the country, we reach every corner of the country, which we hope to do in the next 4 to 5 years. That should really ensure. It is soon, but we have strategies in place right now. We are concluding our funding for that purpose. We want to ensure that at least every district in those 4 and 5 years is covered. Now the issue is to get to the parish level, to get to that last mile, which is also a very huge task. But that now will lower the price of internet. It used to be very high, by the way. As an example, the price of internet used to be about $1,800 in 2008 per megabit per second. Now, through the efforts that we have done, it has come down to $70 per megabit per second. That's a huge, huge, huge reduction. But our target is actually to bring that down even to more than half that price, to ensure that your uncle and my auntie in Rukunjiri and somebody far off in the corner in Arua can actually access the internet. So that's the infrastructure. Infrastructure also includes data centers. NITA Uganda hosts more than 180 e-services, electronic services. Some of the services you're talking about right now that you're accessing, e-passport services, visa systems that you're working on online, vaccination systems, these are all hosted by NITA Uganda in a cloud system that we've built that hosts all the MDAs and reduces the cost of doing business for the government. That also becomes an infrastructure foundation for a digital economy. We also lastly, and there are many things to talk about, but we've also built what we call the UG Hub. It's an integration platform that connects many MDAs, ministries, departments, agencies into one connection so that these can talk to each other. Imagine you have to go to a bank and the bank says you have to first go to NIRA and confirm your ID. Then NIRA, you need to go to URSB for your business. You have to walk to another line. We're saying let us connect all the government entities, and if you walk to one entity, it should be able to collect information from all the other entities through an integration platform called UG.
Actually, I enjoyed that when I was at Uganda Investment Authority, where with a few investors trying to see how best they can enjoy the various opportunities in Uganda. And it was a one-stop center.
One-stop, exactly.
You just enter there, everything, your tax, this and that, whatever they wanted to know, was just by click of a button. And I said, wow, I'm proud to be a Ugandan.
Imagine if that was also in the farthest district. Imagine if that one-stop center was also accessible in Karamoja and in Chihihi. And that's what inclusivity really calls for. That while people in Kampala are beginning to enjoy these infrastructure benefits, even the person at the last mile, the poorest on the pyramid, should also receive the same. So that's really the drive. But also we have policy and regulation. We have, over the last years, we have enacted almost 5 to 7 laws that really allow, you've heard of the Computer Misuse Act. People who misuse social media, misuse computer usage, can now be prosecuted. And that's important in a digital economy. We have things like the Electronic Signatures Act, Electronic Transactions Act, the National Payment Systems Act that allows digital finance. Mobile money now is acceptable. And people can now innovate. And that's part of government's role in ensuring that there's a digital. And also another law is, most recently, is the Data Protection and Privacy Act, which allows us to protect your data. Every time you drive into any public place, they want to know your phone number. But Robert, your phone number is also your bank account now. So do you realize that now if they publish Robert and your telephone number in the wrong forum, you can either get abuses from the public, or people can try to hack into your bank account because that's your bank account. How can we now protect that data subject like Robert from the data collectors who are collecting this data? So that is now a law. So government has also come up with laws and regulations to ensure the digital economy is also inclusive. But maybe last 2 points for the government. We also have innovation, and I can talk about that later. What we're doing for innovation for the youth especially, and also, of course, being able to ensure that we have skills development. Are there basic skills? Is there literacy? Is there financial literacy for people in the curriculum? As government, we have been putting focus in ensuring our citizens are more literate about the digital economy.
Well, this brings me to another interesting angle. I want to know how this e-economy has contributed into microfinance institutions.
Yes.
Because many a times when you move into this, you find there's so much digitalization,
Yes.
so much. Just a minute, they seem so busy. So with you, I want to know if, how has it fitted into this? How has it expedited the growth of this? Or has it faced challenges?
So thank you. I think that's a very, very good point. So microfinance institutions, or MDIs or MFIs, are basically in charge of financial models for the last mile. They are really helping financing our people at the lower pyramid. Some of our corporate banks here have focused heavily on the corporate and high-end customers. But MFIs have been extremely focused on that lower pyramid, omuntu wa bulijjo. And I think that's very, very important. SACCOs are also playing a role there. Now, the digital economy has, of course, had to fuse with the microfinance institutions to enjoy those services, because they are the ones who are able to scale or to go farthest where banks cannot. Many banks have 20 or 30 branches, but we have 150 districts. We have lots of parishes. How is the person at the farthest end going to reach this branch? Unless you use digital finance. So digital finance now has become such an important factor, or mobile channels now have become an important factor for microfinances to take services to the poorest people, to the people who are underserved, to the people in the farthest corners. And that's why you find microfinance institutions in the farthest corners where our bigger banks cannot do it. Let me give an example for now. We have maybe 10 or less million accounts, bank accounts in Uganda. And yet, microfinance, and yet we have more than 19 million bankable Ugandans. So there's a large gap. We have many Ugandans who are not included in this whole financial services. Microfinance institutions now have the ability to reach the lowest person in the pyramid, in the population, using digital finance, mobile money. I am on the board of one of the microfinance institutions, one of the biggest in Uganda. And with only 25 branches, we couldn't reach the whole country. But now with mobile agents, with 1,500 mobile agents, in every corner in the village you go to now, you find a mobile agent who can also provide you these financial services. You can have instant loans. You can now connect to NIRA instantly, and we on board and open an account for you. So that's what financial institutions want to do right now, to be able to instantly open an account. How do you do that? You use technology. So all these are now possible for microfinance institutions to reach the last person using digital finance and using digital technologies like mobile.
With that well said, and indeed we are seeing how we are advancing to a desired country where, you know, even holding cash, these physical transactions have also gotten a lot of risks. But that well said, also issues to do with handling of business has also got its challenges. Throw more light on the new data protection law, because this is where we find many have fallen victims to fraudsters. We've had issues of con men. Some, even when you go to this computer, one will tell you someone maybe can't even know you're already there. Some people just even give so much of their information that render them very vulnerable.
Exactly.
Yes.
No, that's actually a very new space in the digital economy, and Uganda has been privileged to be one of the first African countries to actually enforce and pass out this Data Protection and Privacy Act of just 2019. You know, just about 2 to 3 years ago. We now have a data protection office, by the way, in NITA, and NITA is the organization that's charged with enforcing, with monitoring, with ensuring that this act is protecting the people. But very briefly, this act is really providing guidance and providing clarity on the obligations of all data collectors, data producers, data processors, and data subjects like yourself. So like I said, when you collect my data at the gate, and you collect Colin's phone number, my gender, my religion, and when you begin to collect all this information, my village and my details, like NIRA, for instance, has a lot of your information. So they're a data collector. URA has so much information of yours. KCCA or URSB has a lot of your information. Who is supposed to regulate them? Who is supposed to make sure that that information doesn't land in the wrong hands? So this act is ensuring that we protect the rights of data subjects like yourself, to ensure that those whose data is now in public domains is not misused. Some people can take your data and use it for marketing companies. You suddenly get SMSs. You're wondering where these messages are coming from. How did the company get to know? Someone is misusing this data. And we needed an act. We needed an office that also ensures that. And so NITA is now overseeing that data protection and privacy.
It's practically done, because we need to know, we have very many policies, very many good laws. I usually tell people I'm proud of my country because we are paper giants. When it comes to laws, you don't joke with Uganda. Talk about any offense, we have the best law in the land. But then issues come to that is implementation or enforcement of these laws.
I think that's always a challenge for any policy or any regulation or any law. It's one thing to have it passed, say, through the parliament, but it's another thing to see it actually being enforced. But I'm really happy to say that this is one piece of the law that has taken full effect, and I mean, they have a staffed office right now, and one of the biggest things, let me start with awareness. Many acts and many laws fail from the beginning because of awareness. Ugandans don't know about this act many times, and it's still an ongoing process to educate them. So the first thing the office has done is emphasize on awareness of the Data Protection and Privacy Act and the rights of you, our subjects. So we have TV campaigns, we have radio campaigns, there have been data privacy weeks just in January by this same office recently, and now we're now concluding a consistent communication to the public through awareness. But another thing we've also done is that same office now is doing the compliance monitoring. So a subject can actually report a collector who is collecting my data and misusing it. So like I said, we have many government offices that have your data, but NITA, as the regulator of this data protection and enforcer of this act, will also be doing the compliance. Again, how do you do that now? Working with civil society, for instance, for further awareness, but working with organizations like UNCDF or the UN Capital Development Fund, NITA is concluding a portal, an online portal, where citizens can now report and share their complaints on that portal and actually report cases where their data is being abused. And that office will act right away to the point of even prosecution. So prosecution is now possible, penalties are possible according to the act, and that's the office that's supposed to enforce that. So citizens are actually on the way to complete protection of their data as long as we have more awareness. Do subjects now know their rights? Do organizations that are collecting this data also know their obligations in this act? So I think awareness is top agenda right now for the success of this law, but the office is staffed, the office is working, and we're finishing a portal to allow citizens to report some of these data privacy issues. Have you been to a place where you buy gonja and they wrap the gonja in a hospital details papers with the patient's data, with the sickness diagnosis, doctor's signature, wrapping your gonja at Namaojolo or something? Imagine imagine you buy gonja and you find your relative's name there, and the diagnosis, the sickness. We must protect people's data, from falling in the wrong hands, and that's what this office does.
I just love that, and I hope that really sees the light of the day. I'm happy that there are really initiatives, and I want to say that should have been done yesterday. But
For
good
sure.
enough, even a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
For sure.
We hope we'll get that more, and with more awareness, I know we'll get to that. But this then brings me again to deeper. That is into the challenges of cybersecurity in a data economy. Let's get to know more of this.
Cybersecurity remains a challenge, I think, anywhere in the world. And we usually have a statement, an opening statement in the digital economy or in the IT space, where we say there's no 100% guarantee for security anywhere in the world. American governments are hacked. Google, Oracle, Microsoft, some of the biggest players are hacked every other day. So there is a real challenge. The deeper you go the digital economy, the greater the landscape for attack, for digital attack. In other words, a young man seated in Ukraine can now attack UBC, from his bedroom because of the internet. So the farther we go the digital economy, yes, we are opened farther and farther to cyber attack. But thank God we actually have mitigations. And as a government of Uganda and through NITA, we've built and worked with UCC and all the government entities to build a computer emergency response center, what we call a SAT. And this is a very complex outfit that actually is monitoring cybersecurity in the country. And of course, details I cannot share fully online. But
they're watching the show and they're saying, yes, that is the man. So what can he give that you can cling on?
So we are trying to build security into all our e-services, from design, from conceptualization, ensuring that it's not just about convenience for you to log in and do your passport at home and pay for your passport at home, to log in and do your visa in the comfort of your home, which you can now do, by the way, to walk in and begin working on on your NIRA application from your home. But can we ensure that there is security inbuilt from data where it is being designed, in transit of your data, but also in our national data center? We have wrapped that data center with layers, multiple layers of security that I cannot, of course, share more on.
Well, I'll cut you short and we go for a short commercial break. When we return, I and Collins will be discussing more regarding digital economy, its security, and the biggest interesting word here in our topic is inclusiveness. How do we ensure that the person in the most remote part of Uganda is not left behind in a digital economy? We'll return shortly.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Raising voices.
I feel happy when my mother spends time with me. I hope all mothers will like my mother. I want my mother to reach out to all mothers. She knows how important it is to be a good mother. I promise to help my mother inspire other mothers to change.
In this time of COVID, what is your promise to the children of Uganda? Because a violence-free childhood is everyone's right. Raising voices.
Are your children ready to learn? Schools are open. As parents and guardians, it is your duty to ensure that your children go back to school. COVID-19 prevention measures have been put in place to keep students safe as they go back to school. Not only do teachers prioritize everyone's health, including their own, but they discourage violence among students. They also ensure that students follow SOPs. Any concerns are reported to a school administrator or senior woman or man teacher for correction and further guidance. Dear parents and guardians, you too must play your role. Ensure your children always maintain a 2-meter distance from others, avoid crowded places, regularly wash their hands with soap and water, and wear a washed and clean face mask that covers their mouths and noses. Please keep your children at home if they're feeling sick, and take note. In our effort to keep students safe, there are no visitation days or any other school visits allowed. Let's share knowledge, not COVID-19. This message is supported by the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education and Sports, and UNICEF. Stay safe.
Your MBs are now bigger MBs only on MTN. When you load a daily bundle of 250 shillings, you no longer get 15 MBs, you get 25 MBs. For 500 shillings, you no longer get 40 MBs, you get 65 MBs. For 1000 shillings, it's no longer 100 MBs, it's 165 MBs. Dial *150*10# or use the My MTN app to load bigger daily bundles only on MTN.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. Thank you so much for keeping it with us as we discuss that is building an inclusive digital economy. Building an inclusive digital economy where nobody is left behind. And for me, I love the word inclusive, meaning there isn't anything to do with selectiveness. We all move together as a country into a digital economy. And I'm with Colin Mugasha, who is that is the director of e-government at NITA Uganda, or e-government services at NITA Uganda, with whom we are discussing more regarding that is a digital economy and how you, that person next to you will not be left behind at such a time when this is the way to go. We must be realistic. This is where the world is heading. You love it, you hate it. One person once said you cannot resist change. You have to fit into change. But how do we aid everybody to fit into this change? And this is where, Collins, I want to ask, how is government really implementing this?
Okay. No, I think, first of all, thank you again for having me on this show. And we must keep talking about this digital economy. There have been so many initiatives I think I had elaborated earlier, and I could have the whole day to talk about some of these things. But For instance, right now, we're trying to see, can citizens now, in the comfort of their homes, begin to access electronic services that will transform their lives? We see citizens now who have been lining up for basic services in a public office. They have been lining up to receive, of course, IDs. It's still happening. It's hopefully going to be reducing very soon with the digitization of NIRA. We see citizens lining up
for TIN numbers.
For TIN numbers, but I think now you've seen URA digitize a lot of that with the e-tax, e-freeze that you've had. So we are telling every government organization, you need to think digital first. If you're developing a service for the government, don't think about the physical office and physical interaction first. Think digital, mobile first. How can I, in the comfort of my home, as a citizen in Kabong, and again, like I said, in Arua or in Masaka somewhere, sit on my phone, on my tablet, on my computer, and actually access government services, not leaving my home, getting onto a bus and lining up somewhere in Kampala. So the questions now would be, can we ensure that there is affordability and accessibility, right, of these services? So the first thing I mentioned to you was governments need to continue, and we are working hard to ensure that internet penetrates to the deepest corners. That must happen. And it's a process that we are taking right now. We may be working closely, of course, with telcos. Telcos are big players that are in many corners, but we're not in every corner yet. So we want to see how to work with telcos, but also fill those gaps that telcos haven't reached to ensure that anybody can affordably access the internet. It's one building block that we cannot not talk about in a digital economy. But then also the advent now of mobile money, for instance. And can I now, apart from having a service on the phone, can I also pay on my phone? Rather than starting a process on the phone, you still go to the bank and pay, come back and share a receipt online. We're saying no, finish the process end to end by paying. So now including financial institutions on our government hub, which we're building as NITA, to ensure that citizen services also have payment options.
And I love that.
And make sure that, there's
one of the
payment.
areas, Collins, please let the judiciary fasten that process.
Okay.
A person gets bail at court, and they are returned or they go to prison because banks have closed.
Yes.
That is one of the areas that I find very disturbing.
Okay.
Because banks have closed, the judge has cleared this person because of late payment, please go, then come back tomorrow just to settle this. I find...
And I think I hear your plight, because banks, in other words, should also not close at all. Banks should have 24/7 services, but government institutions also must integrate those 24/7 services of the banks. So I think I hear your point on that, and that must be a pain. Imagine going back into a cell because you cannot pay, yet you had the money right there. So government now must begin to think mobile first, with payments embedded. But I'll tell you about the judiciary. It has made leaps and bounds in the last few years. We now have what we call ICMIS, or Electronic Court Information System, which is now allowing lawyers, to the judges, to the judiciary system to now use electronic means to manage cases. And this is going to reduce the backlog heavily. So NITA and the Minister of ICT have been working closely with the judiciary to actually work on that. But there are also situations where you have seen these days, NITA has provided links to prisons, internet links and connection. Someone doesn't have to leave Chitalia prison to come in a bus guarded with pickups to come to the Kampala Magistrates Court. You don't have to sometimes. You can now have your electronic court on video link in whatever prison you are. That's the kind of convenience we're saying. Why should you drag 30 prisons officers guarding one person to go to one hearing in Kampala when a video link can actually be able to solve that problem? But we must have more internet, more fiber optic connectivity throughout the country, talking to all the prisons to ensure that happens.
Oh, a quick one before this runs out of my mind. There was a time when I think by then it was Honorable Frank Tumwebaze, we promised free internet in Kampala.
Yeah.
That were some places, of course, some smart chaps can tap into. There are some government institutions you go to, and maybe they have Wi-Fi as long as you're in that proximity. There's one interesting story where I come from, and that is March, India. So that the division, every evening, I used to find a lot of youth around the division headquarters. very packed. Even if it was around 11,
Yeah,
sometimes you have
11
issues and you
PM.
move at midnight. These
Yeah.
young boys are around there. Until they
Yeah.
told me, you know, when you get closer, there's free Wi-Fi,
There's free Wi-Fi.
unlimited. So I'm like, okay.
There is free Wi-Fi. I think, Robert, so that we call that MyUG. It's an initiative that NITA, and of course through the Minister of ICT, actually in Honorable Frank's time, began to get implemented. We have more than 340 hotspot Wi-Fi spots around the city, but these are urban areas, so it's not very, very inclusive. But also in urban areas of cities and towns up country. What we do is that government institutions have Wi-Fi, have internet from NITA, okay, affordable internet. But in the evening when they close, that pipe is available because government offices have closed at 5. So what we're doing was, at 7 p.m. we now open that pipe to the young people and say,
yes.
please access free Wi-Fi around the city. But of course that comes with challenges. You know, sometimes you have youth crowding near a government office like you saw. So where do you draw the line? You want to provide the service for a digital economy to the young people who need internet, by the way. They are driven by social media. They are driven by being online, and yet internet is still not as affordable for them. So the government is now providing the 340 Wi-Fi free hotspots around the country, but those happen at the night time. We allow them to happen after 6 p.m. because the government offices have now released that pipe. There are no transactions happening. We now offer that free service to our people. But obviously the end game is not to just offer free Wi-Fi service around the place that allow crowding of young people. But can we lower the cost of devices? If every Ugandan had access to an affordable smartphone, Robert, an affordable smartphone, $20, 75,000 shillings, for instance, with a payment plan from a microfinance or telecom company, that would solve the problem. An affordable device and affordable internet, finally, would solve this whole access issue. So the youth are looking for access. They're looking for information. That's why they crowd around government offices where we are providing free Wi-Fi. But you're right, that's happening.
Very interesting.
Right
now I want to take you to innovation. I know the youth we've talked about.
Yes.
There's so much innovation. When we talk about digital innovation in our country, people will develop apps day in, day out. As your directorate, where you're in charge of this, how have you supported these initiatives? Yeah,
thank you, Robert. I think the whole innovation, what we call the innovation ecosystem in Uganda is young and just maturing. You may have heard about innovation hubs or places now in Kampala where young people can go and sit with free space, with free internet, and they have mentoring services for the ideas. If you look at Facebook today, if you look at Google, if you look at Instagram, WhatsApp, and all these big digital economy players, Netflix, they all began in a garage. A young man or a young woman had a laptop or a phone or some small device, and they began trying out something new, and they innovated a global game changer. And we are saying that should also happen for our Ugandan youth. The government of Uganda, through what we're calling the National ICT Initiative Support Program, or NISP, is actually supporting and funding young innovators. It's been funding that for the last couple of years, and I sit on that committee. We find young people, we send out a call and say, we would like to do a government service. Let's say an example of the parish model, okay? Or the e-government procurement system. By the e-government procurement system that is now working in Uganda is through local innovators. Through local innovators, yeah. And it's now a national system.
Yes.
It's running. Malawi and Kenya are benchmarking, and they want to have this system. So Ugandan youth and Ugandans have a lot of potential. So the government will encourage these players to come. We will provide seed capital for them. They're usually just young men and women coming from university without any governance structures. They have no capital, they have no equipment, they need internet. We provide those basics for them. We partner with innovation hubs to actually work with them through affordable internet, free workspace for them, but especially seed capital for them, and have them organized, because usually they're just young men and women coming from the university with great ideas. But how do you move that idea from a dream, incubate it, and take it to the market to become a commercialized idea that brings money? That would change the socio-economic outlook of Uganda if the youth were empowered to have their ideas that are just in the head or on the laptop move from there right all the way to the market. So the government is working with innovation hubs, but also working through the Ministry of ICT to actually hold the hand of young innovators to now come up with global solutions. So I gave an example of the EGP, or the e-government procurement system, which is also under part of my docket. Young people came together, put it together. It's now working for the saving government money, improving transparency for the government, and is now almost at the verge of being commercialized to the whole of Africa. Malawi, Kenya have all said, can we have that system? We're saying first wait, let's first develop it, mature it, and possibly have a discussion around it. So we are working with innovators on internet, on maturity of their government systems, on seed capital for them.
That is very, very interesting. And of course, there is hope for you, a young man, the Bill Gates of this time.
It is possible.
So many we've talked about, they are making money out of innovation. And Uganda government, with assurance from Collins, is ensuring, I love the word, hold you by hand to ensure your idea is thoroughly developed. But now, Colin, this brings me to another interesting question.
Yeah.
We've talked about the good. We've talked about government efforts. All this sounds so rosy and has so many benefits. Now let's look at the fear of a digital economy. If here I had about 3 engineers with many developments, then you'll have one. Where I had maybe radios and would be in studio, you have an engineer the other side, you have this one selecting music. Now when I get onto radio, I just sit before my computer and I have a console and everything I'm doing myself. I fix the adverts, I do everything myself. About 4 jobs or 6 were lost there. So how is this creating more jobs as much as money are being lost?
Okay. And Robert, that's a very key question in this discussion of a digital economy. Especially professionals begin to get a scare that their jobs are actually going to be lost in this digital economy. Why? Because we now have the advent of artificial intelligence.
Maybe robots, a robot would one day sit here.
Yes, robots, and you know, even software robots now. For instance, you can now have a chatbot, what we're calling a chatbot, literally respond 24/7. So if you had UBC here, you should never say that we are closing office at 5 and therefore we can't take your inquiry. A program can chat with somebody wherever they are and respond to them about their inquiry. It's a pre-programmed program, a software, but working like a call center. So I agree with you that there's that fear usually, but first think about the jobs that have been opened by the digital economy. I've talked about innovation. The fact that now young people don't necessarily have to look for a formal job. They now, with one laptop, you can change the world. One laptop, affordable internet, you can come up with a great idea. You've seen Jumia right now. Jumia is taking over the space of e-commerce, for instance, because people now want convenience. They want to buy and sell. But along with that is riders who are delivering these Jumia products. It is service agents who are working behind Jumia. So it's also opened up a lot of the economy in terms of young people. So innovators now are getting more opportunities using digital economy. Young people who are seated at home now with a mobile phone can become an agent of a bank. I don't know if you've walked into a bank agent now, and a young man with a point of sale or a young lady with just a mobile phone can give you Stanbic cash. You say you want DFCU, you want cash in, cash out, you want to be able to pay. One agent in a rural district having a mobile phone. Imagine the jobs that have now been created by this digital economy. All the agents you see in small shops by telcos and government institutions are now jobs created. We now have what we call the business process outsourcing, or BPO. It's also another big acronym that you hear in the digital economy. We have young people, and NITA and the Ministry of ICT are behind that move. And the president is very passionate about youth empowerment using BPO. Many entities in the USA don't have the bandwidth, or the people there don't want to do some of these jobs that are repetitive, accounting jobs, legal clerk work, testing of software. They're saying, can we push that work to India and Uganda? We're saying, please bring that work. So we put 100 young people in a room. They have high fast class internet with computers, and they're able to receive work from the USA that the developed countries don't want to do, and they're outsourcing it to us. That is now jobs being created by the digital economy. So we actually have more jobs now being created than are lost. But to those that are seemingly worried about their jobs, especially professional people, you need to reskill. You need to follow the trends and see where is the world going. So we should be talking about redeployment rather than job loss, reskilling rather than job loss. If you see that your job is in a repetitive area that a software can replace, please quickly find a new skill and tap into another space that you will be redeployed. So, for instance, in the government, I don't see us losing jobs because of digitization. I see us redeploying people into other productive areas. So for me, job loss is not a big worry. I tell people, for instance, another example, database administrators were the most important people in the IT industry. They're the people who manage data. They're people who updated the tables. They were paid highly. But today, a computer robot, using what they call artificial intelligence, can now replace 5 database administrators. One software, it has no emotions, it doesn't have closing hours, it doesn't need a lunch break, it's working 24/7. It can do the work 5 database administrators were doing, and much better, higher security and higher precision. So I'm telling database administrators now, rethink your role, maybe move into innovation. Focus more into customer experience and customer facing jobs and leave the back office, because the back office now is being replaced by robots. But I'll just end by saying there are more jobs being created by the digital economy using digital technologies than those that are being lost. So we should be comforted that all is well.
I love that, and that brings me to the end of this show. But before I let Collins go, I want his parting shot on where he sees the digital economy in Uganda in the next 5 years.
Thank you so much, Robert. And I want to thank the viewers who have stayed up with us this morning. I really want to just to share a vision of where National IT Authority, Director of E-Governance, as well as the government of Uganda would like to see us in about 5 years. I really want to say to you right now that we would like to see the internet penetrated to the farthest district in the next 5 years. Right now we're about 40% there, so we have work to do, but we'd like to see that happen. We're now at about 70 megabits per second as the cost of internet. We'd like to see that less than $10. Right? It's about $70 right now. We'd like to see it less than $10, and therefore more accessible to every Ugandan. We'd like to see tax-free mobile smartphones and devices, hopefully assembled and manufactured in Uganda. And this is possible. We already have plants here that are assembling. We now need to move faster into manufacturing. But that will now bring the cost of smartphones down. So in the next 5 years, our prayer is to have every Ugandan included, people with disabilities, women and youth, people in underserved communities, having access to affordable smartphones with affordable internet. And that really drives this whole digital economy. I would like us to see ourselves citizens seated in the comfort of their homes, using a citizens portal, which we're now developing and we're launching this year, God willing. Where you in one application, in one web portal, the government can provide you online permit, driving permit services, passport applications, NIRA applications, KCCA, URSB. Think of any government public service now online, but in one place. You don't have to go to ura.go.ug, access e-tax, go to KCCA, access that service, go and line up at NIRA and access that service. Imagine if all that came into one application or into one mobile phone in the comfort of your home. Our desire is emulating a small country I called Estonia, where citizens don't have to drive out for public services. They have e-government services online and on mobile. But we must make sure devices are affordable. We must make sure that internet is affordable and reaching the last mile. That's our prayer.
That's our prayer, and indeed it is my prayer. I long to see that Uganda, and we know it's not very far. Sooner than later, we'll get there. And also one thing that gives me that courage is by 2025, our oil will be up and running.
Hallelujah.
So maybe we shall have more sources to ensure we can extend the broadband to other areas, and maybe we shall reduce taxes on some of these things. But I just want to thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert.
Collins, very fruitful discussion. I want to believe, and of course with a lot of interest, and most to know that there are more opportunities than actually losses in the or digital economy. I want to wish you the best of your day. I've been with Colin Mugasha, who happens to be the Director of E-Governance Services at NITA Uganda. All is very clear that the future is bright. Let's all embrace digital services and digital approaches. Whatever you have in your mind, think about digitalization to that area, and we'll get there as a nation. God bless you. Keep it with us on UBC TV. Good morning.
Thank you.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Raising voices.
I feel happy when my mother spends time with me. I hope all mothers will like my mother. I want my mother to reach out to all mothers. She knows how important it is to be a good mother. I promise to help my mother inspire other mothers to change.
In this time of COVID, what is your promise to the children of Uganda? Because a violence-free childhood is everyone's right. Raising voices.
Are your children ready to learn? Schools are open. As parents and guardians, it is your duty to ensure that your children go back to school. COVID-19 prevention measures have been put in place to keep students safe as they go back to school. Not only do teachers prioritize everyone's health, including their own, but they discourage violence among students. They also ensure that students follow SOPs. Any concerns are reported to a school administrator or senior woman or man teacher for correction and further guidance. Dear parents and guardians, you too must play your role. Ensure your children always maintain a 2-meter distance from others